Newfangled Elevate is one of my favorite finishing limiters. Why finishing? Because I don't feel like Elevate fits every song. It sounds a little bit artificial to my ears and doesn't have that natural glue, pump, and warmth that standard limiters add. So it's very rare for me to use it as my main heavy lifting limiter. But it is amazing at finalizing and squeezing a little bit more loudness after your main lift. And this is where I use it the most. So this track is called Preña by Lucho. And after I found the combination of my mastering limiters, I wanted to export my song at -0.2 ceiling and push it a little bit more while enhancing the transients of the song. I'm going to open a new instance of it. And the first thing I change is this distribution. So by default, it's set to mel, basically like emulating the way we hear frequencies. But I find this setting a little bit too broad, especially for the low end. So I usually click on custom, and as you can see now we have a much better division in terms of our microdynamics on the low end. This is important for me, and this just sounds better. Each time I hit AB with the male versus custom, this setting always wins, in my opinion. Okay, and obviously you can dial it in as you want. So for example, if you wanna do something like this, you are free to do it. This way you can focus on specific ranges, okay? Or you can just reduce the amount of bands as well, so you can get really precise on the low end. I don't know, this, you can play with this as much as you want, but I usually just go with this custom view. This is usually enough for me, at least for my usage of it. Then we have the limiter EQ section, and this is a multiband limiter. So you will see we have all those nodes, and what you can do with this is apply more or less limiting in a certain area. So for example, if your master is distorting because there is a lot of low information, I usually reduce this band here. And then for example, if I'm missing some attack on the kick, I can boost those bands right there. So, you know, this is basically how it works. You can reset it right here if you want. And if you want to deactivate this multiband limiting, you can just turn this off. All right. And this becomes really, really interesting because this adaptive gain, when you crank it to the max, now the limiter will compress all those frequencies in a different way, like individually. And if you boost this setting, you can feel that there's much more microdynamic movement happening in the song. And sometimes that's beneficial, but other times it can get distracting and can also ruin your well-crafted microdynamic balance that you applied before, right? So this adaptive gain is always great to go from 0 to 12 and find the sweet spot for the specific track, right? Then transient section, same thing. And as you can see, we can go single band or multiband, and here we can emphasize specific frequencies to add additional punch. If you go all the way to 0, this band gets deactivated. And this is great when you're missing a little microdynamic movement in a certain area. Sometimes you want to add a little more hi-hat or no hi-hat at all, right? You would paint something like this. In other occasions, you may add a little boost to the kick, so it pops through. Sometimes I use this to bring up the presence of the track. For example, I want to make our vocal present and maybe enhance the snare area, so I'll do something like this. And again, you have the single multiband slider where you can select if the whole track is going to be expanded, then this per band transient emphasis doesn't really make sense, or you can make all those bands just behave individually. And again, that enhances the microdynamic interest overall, but sometimes it can get out of control easily. So don't get too crazy with this. And same with transient emphasis, this is the amount of transients you're going to boost. So sometimes no transients is great. Other times, like maybe all the way out to 50, I think like the max for me would be like 60, 70, no more, right? And then we have the clipper, it's a spectral clipper. This one is great. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, especially if you still have some space between the peaks and the bodies. You know, there's some space because the peaks are too high and the bodies are a little bit low. You can clip a little more. I usually go for hard clipping in this case, and maybe the most I can do is 0.5, but I think this was like a quick and useful overview of the plugin functionality. Let's apply it to this song. Let's listen. As you can see, I'm applying minus 0.2 ceiling because that is going to be the level I will export my song at. I don't care about true peak in this specific case, so I'm not going to activate it. Okay, and let's see how far we can push it from here. Right, so I was missing a little bit weight overall on the song, and as you can see, it's easily enhanced and in a very subtle and nice way. And then I can find the sweet spot for the adaptive gain. Let's see if we can enhance some transients. I'm going to reset this. Okay, not bad, right?
Tú tampoco, pero seré el primero antes de que lo haga otro. No soy posesivo, más pero veo tu foto y quiero tener exclusividad de ese toto. Hago un baby, aunque estemos jovencitos más. Yo te veo futura, mami. Ese culote se debe de heredar. Aguanta la presión, mami, take it. Sé que la fama es difícil de aguantar. Voy a hacerte mi first lady. Por ti dejo todo y vuelvo a camellar.
Okay, so as you can see, the song was loud, we limited a lot, but then we were able to recover those microdynamic movements, impact, and even reshape the tonal balance of the song. So as you can see, this is magical. And obviously this is just like a tiny part of what can be done in mastering. So if you're interested in learning more about my mastering process in depth, I recommend you to join my private mentoring, where we have weekly calls and we discuss mixing and mastering techniques in depth. But hopefully you found this useful and it will improve the sound of your tracks.